Hello. Good morning, dear hearts. Welcome to Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, and those of you online who are joining us there as well. I'm Reverend Mary Murray Shelton. I'm the community spiritual leader here at Golden Gate. I'm very happy to welcome you all this morning, and I want to give you an opportunity to do the same with each other. So this is the beginning of creating ourselves anew. Every time we come in on Sunday morning, we are not exactly the same group of people that have ever been here before. So we want to establish ourselves right now as a congregation. So please stand up, walk around, introduce yourself to people you don't know. Welcome back, those you haven't seen in a while. And just take this opportunity to make each other welcome. Those of you who are online with us, take this moment to give yourself a hug. Pour yourself another cup of coffee or tea, jog around the living room, whatever you need to do to get yourself ready for the day. We'll be right back to sing in just a moment. All right, come back and take your seats. We have kind of an interesting combination of music this morning. Lisa Ferraro is leading us in the opening and closing song, but both of the middle songs are videos that Lisa did. The first one more recently with Natalia Zuckerman, and the second one much earlier with her late partner, Edika Lukat. And so those two videos where you'll see the images, not the people singing, that's what that is. And so the first song is just with Lisa on her guitar. It's We Are One. So stand and join us. And we have sung this before. You'll get it right away. It's an easy song to learn if you don't know it already.
We are one in the Spirit of God. Good morning, everyone. We are one in the Spirit of God. We are one in the Spirit of God. We are one, we are one, we are one, we are one. We are one in the Spirit of God.
may be seated. Thank you. So this is a time to go ahead and silence your cell phone so it won't interrupt you or anyone else in the course of the morning. You don't have to turn it off, but just make it silent. And then we're going to go within now and prepare ourselves inwardly together for the morning. So Reverend M. Louise Mann is going to come up and pray us in.
And so we enter the silence. And take a deep breath and just remember who we are. Remember that we are one with the divine, that we are part of that expression of life. Each one of us is a blessing to life. Each one of us is open and remembering who we truly are as expressions of the divine. And as we just turn to that God within, and just know that we are absolutely open to being in our center this morning, to open to the wonderful message that Reverend Mary will give, and to let it stir us and guide us as we walk forward and know that we are the beloveds. We are truly the beloveds. And so I just accept this good, and I am so grateful for it. And I just let it be, and together we say,
and so it is. Thank you, Reverend M. Louise.
What if freedom's knowing that true love never dies? Freedom is the peace that fills me when I sit with closed eyes, leaning into darkness to truly know the light. Freedom's the peace that fills me with closed eyes. What if independence is calling on your friends? The ones that you depend on to be there till the end, knowing that you're not alone when the dark descends. What if freedom's calling on your friends? We all fail until everybody wins. There's no veil. It's not that it's thin, it's just not there. There's no separate but equal. We're all precious people. What if liberation is retiring the myth that 7 billion different paths can't be the way it is? The way to live together is to coexist. Liberation is retiring the myth. We all fail until everybody wins. There's no veil. It's not that it's thin, it's just not there. There's no separate but equal. We're all precious people. We all fail until everybody wins. There's no veil. It's not that it's thin, it's just not there. There's no separate but equal. We're all precious people. We're all precious. We're all precious people.
We're all precious people. That kind of fits with Reverend M. Louise's opening for us today, too. The recognition that this omnipresent wisdom, this omnipresent intelligence, is also in us, fully present, because after all, that's what omnipresent means. It's not, everybody and Joe. It's not all of God and me. It's a oneness. So this year, the theme for Centers for Spiritual Living is rising higher and growing deeper. Not just extending and expanding consciousness, but also growing deeper into our groundedness, into our roots, into our connections with all that is through the physical, as well as through the mystical and spiritual. And this month, we're talking about stretching into new possibilities because it's January, and in January, one of the things that ministers sometimes do is talk about the basic principles of science of mind. So that's what I've been doing. And today is a conversation about prayer. And so the title is Choose the Mystery. See, one of the things about prayer is that people have been doing it forever. In every different corner of the world, in every civilization, in every culture, there have been forms of prayer that are used. And we have a particular form of prayer that's unique to us in science of mind. It's the one thing about the science of mind that Ernest Holmes put together and created himself. Everything else that he taught was as a result of his studies and his practice. But this was a result of something that he assembled uniquely out of those things. And so, although, for example, unity uses an idea similar to ours, and the words treatment, as spiritual mind treatment is what we call our prayer, the words treatment and practitioner, those who are licensed to see clients and charge money for doing work with any of us, those words came from Christian Science, even though we're not Christian scientists and what we believe is a lot different. But Ernest Holmes came through that teaching, and so he took those useful words and put them to use for us as well. We're not Christian Science practitioners. We're religious science practitioners, and there is a difference. So one of the things I want to talk to you about today is this mystery of prayer. And although we can't really know exactly why it works or exactly how it works, in science of mind, we have a theory, an idea to hold together why prayer is useful. So I love this little story. Johnny, who was 5 years old and very bright little guy, told his daddy one day that he wanted a baby brother. And his dad, who was quite a bright 35-year-old, paused for a moment and thought about it. And then he said, with a twinkle in his eye, "Tell you what, Johnny, if you pray every day for 2 months for a baby brother, I guarantee you're going to get one." So Johnny was delighted, and he went to his bedroom, and early that night, he started to pray right away for a baby brother. He prayed every night that month. But then he started to feel a little doubtful, so he decided to talk to some of his friends about it. And he found out that what he thought was going to happen was something that had never happened in the history of his neighborhood, at least as far as his friends were concerned. I mean, they said, you don't just pray for 2 months and then whammo, you have a baby brother. So he quit praying. He decided, well, maybe that's just my dad. Maybe that doesn't really work. And about a month later, Johnny's mother went to the hospital, and when she came home, Johnny's dad called him into the bedroom, and he walked in, and he saw a little bundle lying next to his mother. And his dad pulled back the blanket to show him there were actually 2 bundles. She had twin boys, baby boys. And Johnny's dad smiled down at him, and he said, "Now, aren't you glad you prayed?" And Johnny hesitated for a moment. Then he looked up at his dad and he said, "Yes, I am, Daddy, and I'm also really glad I stopped praying when I did." A lesson in effective prayer. Not only did he get the results he wanted, he got double the results he wanted in half the time. Pretty impressive. So the idea that we're talking about this morning is effective prayer or affirmative prayer or scientific prayer. These are all terms that we use to talk about the kind of prayer that we use in the science of mind. So I want to do a little review first on how we got here over the last 3 weeks. So the first thing that I talked about on the first Sunday of January was God's nature is my nature. Essentially, God is all there is. When we say that God is omnipotent, we actually believe it. It's difficult to stretch your mind to the idea that there's only one and it's everywhere fully and everything all the time. But here's the thing. If we believe that something exists that we would call God or Great Spirit or higher power, whatever name you want to use for it, if we believe something like that exists, then if it's going to be this kind of powerful presence that we consider it to be, it can't be two. It has to be a wholeness, otherwise there's a competition. It has to be a wholeness that is everywhere, in everything, all the time. That's omnipresent, which means fully present in us, not only around us, fully present in us. Now that's huge, that's a big deal. Then, the second week, I talked about making creative space, recognizing that this omnipresence that's in us includes the method, the mechanism by which God creates. So I said that Thomas Troward, who influenced our founder Ernest Holmes a lot, Thomas Troward said, "Spirit plus nothing is spirit." If you think about the existence of the physical universe, it wasn't always here. At some point it came into being. So what happened to bring that into being? Thomas Troward basically says, something within God, because God was all there was no form, something within God moved, and the result was form. What moves where there's no form? Thought. It was the only thing Troward could think of that moves when there is no physical thing to move. So spirit moved on itself, and the result of its self-contemplation was form, which came right out of it, which means that every part of it came forward into everything that is, not just presence, but also creative power, all of the creative power of God. Now, this is where we get into discussions sometimes about what about evil? What about the devil? What about the Holocaust? What about babies who are born with deformities? How did they create that stuff? I don't know, but what we don't come in with things that we want to learn, and we bring stuff with us in order to put that into being so that we can work with it and learn through it. But regardless of that, this creative law, all of it is also where we are. And in order for God to be expressed, Holmes says, in order for spirit to be expressed, because this infinite has a desire to express, then that desire to express also lives in every one of us. We have a desire to get better at something, or to do what we're good at, or to learn more, or to be helpful. Whatever our motivation is inwardly, we do things in the world. We say things, we think things, we do things, and we bring about results automatically. However, because we change our minds a lot, because we have monkey mind that flits around, every single thing our minds land upon does not come into form. And that is a good thing. So we have this creative law, which is always acting on our internal thoughts and beliefs, because that's what it has as raw materials to be its blueprints. It acts upon by saying yes to everything. It doesn't matter if what we're thinking about is good for us or not. It doesn't matter if it's true. Creative law's job is not to make decisions about any of that. Creative law's job is to say yes. So whatever we put our attention on over and over again with feeling, creative law goes, yes. So if I say, I'm never going to do whatever it is I want to do, I'm never going to be able to do that, creative law goes, yes. And I'm in my own way without intending to be in my own way because I don't realize the power that is within me. All sorts of different religions talk to us about this power. Indigenous religions talk about the power of the word and being aware of the things that we say and the things that we think. Then last week, I talked about how this law is operating in us all the time. And the way that we let that flow is to flow with it rather than to work against it. So the nature of God and the nature of the law and the nature of all of us is that we have a natural desire to strive toward wholeness, to strive toward an increase of good for ourselves or our family or people that we love. And we can do that in any way we want to. We have complete freedom to choose. But the freedom to choose also comes with consequences. And the consequences are that what we put out, that creative law acts upon, also reverberates back to us. So if we're putting out negativity, that's going to reverberate back to us in one way or another. It may not come from the same source we aimed it at, but it will come back to us because it operates like a boomerang. What goes around comes around. Garbage in, garbage out. So we want to pay attention to what we're holding habitually within in our thinking, in our opinions, in our behaviors, in the way we treat ourselves, and the way we teach other people to treat us. God is all there is. Holmes says in The Science of Mind, we are surrounded by an infinite possibility. It is goodness, life, law, and reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. Therefore, it wishes to express through us. That's the omnipresence of God. And then he says, the law of mind as quickly creates one form as another because it's neutral, it's automatic. It doesn't care. It doesn't know it needs to care. It has no self-awareness. The law of mind as quickly creates one form as another for us, and we must allow the patterns of our thought to become molded from the highest sense of reality we possess. So when we feel judgmental or critical or self-critical, when we feel clingy or rejecting, those are clues. When we notice that we're doing that, those are clues to say, what's a higher thought than this? What is more true than what I'm believing right now? How could I see this differently? How could I respond to this differently? Because those are powerful questions. And if we're willing to be guided, if we're willing to allow Spirit all of the leeway to create for us, through us, and to receive that good, then we lovingly expand to let in more good. We let it flow. You know, Wayne Dyer used to talk about row, row, row your boat, the little song. Like, sing that with me once. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. There you go. The call from Spirit to respond. Yes. So, first of all, row, 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 whose boat? Your boat. So the message is stay in your own lane. It's not up to you to fix everybody else. Row your own boat. How? Gently, with kindness, with care. Where? Not up the stream. Not up the stream. You could stay in the same place for years rowing up the stream. No, let it be easy. Flow down the stream. The nature of God is the nature of good and more good. When we flow with that, when we become a part of that, when we allow that, greater good shows up and we become vehicles for greater good. How do we row gently down the stream? With what attitude? Merrily. In his book, This Thing Called You, Ernest Holmes says, expectancy speeds progress. Not expectation. I make a distinction between those two because expectation is very specific. If we have an expectation of somebody else, we want them to do something in a certain way within a certain period of time. But expectancy is a welcoming attitude that assumes good is coming, but doesn't qualify how it has to look or exactly what it has to be. Expectancy, carrying an attitude of expectancy of good, speeds progress of it coming, of our experience of it. And in the process, and this may be the most important thing I have to say to you today, prayer is never about trying to convince a reluctant God to do something. It's not about trying to make the law work. It's not about hanging on to it just rigidly to make it be so, because that's a waste of energy. It's going to do what it does anyway. Prayer is about asking for us to be changed. Me personally. Even if I'm doing a prayer for you, I am also asking inwardly to change my perception of you to include the good that you want to receive in your life. To shift from whatever I was thinking about you before to open to a greater possibility of you. And when I say that prayer for you out loud, I say it with the recognition that we are joined in consciousness. So what I am knowing about you is known for you, in you, right where you are. And all you have to do as the recipient of prayer is be open to receiving that good and letting go of what's in your way. Even if you don't know what it is, the willingness is enough. So Holmes says, you may as well begin by realizing that, this is from Joel Goldsmith, another great metaphysical teacher of the same time era as Holmes. He says, you may as well begin by realizing that the secret of having anything is first attaining the consciousness of it. That's a big deal. Why is that, he says? Because consciousness is God. And the moment you have the consciousness of the thing, consciousness creates it. Wherever the it and whatever the it may be, home, companionship, supply, employment, health, your consciousness of it builds it. With all thy getting, he's quoting the Bible here, with all thy getting, get understanding. And then he says, with all thy getting, get a consciousness of good, and then the good will follow. When we do visioning, one of the questions we ask is, what must I become in consciousness to allow this vision to come into my experience? What must I become? Essentially, where is my growing edge? Where am I invited to stretch? Where am I invited to change into something more? What am I believing or thinking that's now in my way, and it's time for me to let go of it? What can I expand into and welcome that I have resisted up until now? This is how I grow consciousness. This is how I become more. And as I become more, my life becomes more and greater. An African proverb says, there are two things over which you have complete dominion: your mind and your mouth. Very wise, short and wise. Those things we have choice about, as well as what we choose to do. Your mind, what you're thinking, and your mouth, what you're saying. I remember hearing about a very wise grandmother who said to her little grandchild, she touched him on the forehead, she said, "First, see it here." And then she took his hands and she said, "Then, see it here. And then, see it everywhere." Now that is a simple little way of teaching a child to pray, really. See it in your mind's eye. Then imagine it in your experience. What would it feel like? What would you be doing? Where would you be? Who would you be with? How would you behave? What would you not believe anymore? And then see it in your world, bless you, in other people, in other situations, in other things. So Holmes says, we are not depending upon chance, but upon the law. The responsibility for setting a law in motion is ours, but the responsibility of making it work is inherent in its own nature. We must know that we are dealing with the substance from which all things are made. Nothing moves but mind. And we are dealing with the mind that is the mover, the creator, the cause of all that is or is to be. We should sense back of the word which we speak is the power of the universe, surging to express itself, and then speak the word consciously, knowing that it is law. You know how Arlo Guthrie said, "You got to sing this song with enthusiasm." Anybody remember that? Well, anyway, whether you do or not, he did. And it's just like you have to speak the word with authority. You don't speak your word in this weak little please Jesus kind of voice. That's not a spiritual mind treatment. So when we look at the idea of prayer, we see that prayer exists in Christianity. Prayer exists in Islam. Prayer exists in Buddhism as a form of meditation, or depending which branch of Buddhism it is. It shows up everywhere, everywhere. And we as human beings have caused all sorts of things to be seen as sacred. Smoke, fire, water, bells, nature, animals, earth, people, sky, everything. We have found ways to make all of it sacred and to remind ourselves that it's sacred. So when we do prayer in the science of mind, it looks more like this, where the client sits with the practitioner who listens, while the client describes what the issue is that is their problem or their challenge. And then, having listened to that, the practitioner talks about how we might approach this for prayer, how we might look at this differently together. What if? Would you be willing to consider? And then the practitioner speaks the word for you in that consciousness of speaking with authority. And the word is responded to with yes. So when we're doing prayer in Science of Mind, it's not what you might have learned somewhere else as a child, okay? It's not trying to convince God. It's not trying to talk God into something through pleading. It's not bargaining with God. Listen, God, if you do this for me, I promise I'll do that. It's not bargaining. It's not, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm such a worm. It's not an apology. All of those things are the little self, the little finite human, imagining it's in conversation with something very powerful far away. Yeah? That's not what we think about when we're in prayer. We're not saying, oh, you're so amazing, you're so wonderful, you're so cool, you're so smart, you're so beautiful, now give me what I want. It's not that. We're not doing any of that kind of prayer. We're not abasing ourselves. We're not apologizing. We're not worshiping in that sense. We are, instead of talking to God, we're speaking from God. We're declaring the spiritual truth beyond all the conditions that we see. I've often given the example in my classes of, it's as if we have a camera, a 35 millimeter camera, that's the old-fashioned kind that you focus by hand. You have to set the f-stops, you have to set the focus to know what your depth of field is and what you want in focus. So most of us live our lives on a short focus, where the conditions and appearances of our lives are right in front of us, and they're colorful and they're big and they're very focused and they're really distracting. But you can also refocus that camera onto the background so that the background is clear, but what's in front is out of focus. And what's in the background of all of us is the divine presence. That's the spiritual truth of every condition, every situation, every appearance, no matter what. No matter how long the problem seems to have existed, or how bad it's gotten, or how irretrievable we think we are ourselves, the truth is that background is always there. That wholeness is not changed by any of our history. It's not diminished, it's not eliminated, it's not damaged. And that is the truth of us in the background. You can also, with a 35 millimeter camera, focus it more or less on infinity so that everything seems to be in focus relative to everything else. And that would be what it's like when we ourselves are so clear about the spiritual truth that the physical manifestations come into alignment with the spiritual truth to a greater or lesser degree. So what we want to be able to do in prayer is to turn to the background, to the spiritual truth, and let go of our obsession with the appearance, the temporary that is in front of us, because everything that's in form is temporary. Everything. It doesn't matter how many thousands of years old the redwoods are in Armstrong Grove. It doesn't matter. Eventually, their lifespan will be over, but not yet. They're still there. You can go hang out with them. If you're really quiet, you can feel that you're in the presence of wisdom. Just imagine that. Beings that are thousands of years old. They see us walking around in Armstrong Woods. What must they think? More little chicks. They don't know who they are or what they're doing. But we can know in some moments. We can have those moments that burst forth with us. And so what we are doing is we are declaring and accepting the spiritual truth when we pray. So why is it called spiritual mind treatment? Good grief. Couldn't we have found a different, just call it affirmative prayer or something. It makes much more sense. But there was a reason. It was spiritual. It wasn't physical. It was spiritual, not medical, not psychological. Spiritual. It was a treatment for the mind, not the body. And it was a treatment, much like a course of treatment the doctor gives you. If it's a course of antibiotics, if you're having surgery and you go to rehab afterwards, it is a treatment, but it's a treatment for the belief system, a treatment for our faith. It is not psychological or physical. It is not the body, it's the mind. And it is a treatment. So we're not dealing with the temporary. When we do this kind of treatment, we're dealing with the eternal and bringing that into our experience and our awareness. And so there are some tips for how we do this. Everything we say when we do a prayer, we want it to be in the present tense. This is hard. It is hard to do. It is hard to find wording That doesn't sound like you're talking about the future. Anytime you hear a minister or a practitioner in prayer say these two words, will be, we just went off track. Now, we all do it, or is going to be. But the thing is, the creative law doesn't have a sense of time or space to be limited by. So when we declare it will be, that means not now. So we have just put into prayer, something's coming sometime. And the law says, yes, something's coming sometime, but not now. Not now. So it's always not now, because every moment we exist in is always what? Now, right here, right now. So in other words, we want to say, this is becoming, which gives you a sense of it coming into form, evolving right now, or this is, or the possibility is unfolding completely and clearly right now. We want to find ways to say it that don't stick it out in the future. And that requires some time and some practice and really paying attention. So the first thing, and maybe one of the most important, is it needs to be in the present tense. It should be short and simple and specific and clear, because it's easier to remember if you do that. The affirmation part of it in the middle. I am whole, complete, and perfect right now, just as I am. That's an affirmation, and it's in the present. Now, I may be able to enumerate all the stuff that's wrong with me. At the same time, if I say, I'm whole, complete, and perfect, just as I am right now, and I get into the feeling of that, and I hang out there, my body and my mind and my emotions go, oh, that's what we're doing? And creative law says, yes, that's what we're doing. So we want to tell creative law by declaring the truth. Ernest Holmes said, we must connect the good that God is with the operation of our everyday affairs, else it is an energy not used. It is still there, all of it, but only as much of it can flow to us as we believe in. In our spiritual mind treatments, then, we must train ourselves to believe in more and better possibilities. To believe that the good we desire is already done and is being done now. Here's the thing. The possibilities that exist in the infinite, this is where the omniscience comes in, the all-knowingness of God. Every possibility that ever could be, ever was, or is right now, is already known in that mind. So in that sense, it already exists. Somebody was saying in class this week, electricity always existed, but we didn't get the use of it until we figured out what it was or how to use it. Maybe we still don't know what it is, but we know how to produce it, and we know what it does when we produce it. The great mystery, choosing the mystery of choosing prayer, is saying, I'm going to set aside this firm belief I have in the conditions that I'm upset about. Now that's not easy. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to let that drain off for a moment, and I'm going to dwell with spirit in the idea of every possibility. And what is the highest possibility for this situation? What are the possibilities that might evolve out of this? How might I then anticipate those by shifting myself? What is possible there? The other thing is to choose action words that are juicy for us, to choose the rich, full, free, abundant presence of God as my own nature, yeah? And then repeat the affirmation or your treatment with feeling. Repetition and feeling together, that's magic. That really sets the law in motion, the feeling with the repetition. And Holmes said, it is superstitious to believe that God will answer the prayer of one above another. Jesus said that God maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. So one of Ernest Holmes' early questions for himself was, why are some people's prayers apparently answered and others aren't? Could God be withholding from some of those folks? Or have they not been good enough? They don't deserve it, so they don't get... None of that made sense to him, because he really believed that this omnipresent God, this all-powerful God, knew everything always. He thought, it can't be that God has favorites. That doesn't make sense. So what is the difference between a prayer that's answered and a prayer that doesn't seem to be answered? Well, Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith said once, every delay is not a denial. Sometimes it takes a long time for something to come into being, not because God is reluctant or the law is slow, but because it takes that long for us to embody the consciousness that allows us to see that manifestation, to see that result come into being. And so it's like it hangs out in the unseen all around us, just waiting for us to kind of get there. And when we get there, then we can see it. Then it shows up and we're aware of it. So Holmes decided, and put this to the test as much as he could, that the difference was in the prayer itself and the consciousness that the prayer came from. Not that people's consciousness was bad, just that they didn't know any better. So he began to teach people, pray from the presence of God, declaring into being the highest truth you know. No matter what form of prayer you were using, to do that inwardly, always. And you would be more successful in your prayer work, no matter what your faith was. Because he didn't really care about that initially at all. He was just teaching people how to think about this and how to pray about this to let the greater good come forward. Is this making sense, what I'm saying to you? So he said, there is within each one of us a life instinct, which is forever working toward health, happiness, and all that makes for more life for the individual. This life instinct works for you through that which I call the creative mechanism. Oh no, this is Maxwell Maltz actually who said this. This life instinct works for you through that which I call the creative mechanism, or when used correctly, the success mechanism built into every human being. Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon, a doctor. He saw people come to him all the time who wanted plastic surgery for stuff that looked perfectly fine to him. But they had what we call in science of mind, a mental equivalent of it being not good enough, or not attractive enough, or not healthy enough, or whatever it was. And that idea, that mental blueprint of wrongness is what they kept manifesting in their experience, even though when observed by somebody else, they looked fine. And so he began to recognize, Maxwell Maltz, that the critical problem a lot of times for people wanting plastic surgery wasn't in their body, it was in their belief system. And so he wrote Psycho-Cybernetics after he'd looked into that for quite a while. This is the understanding that we want to create the consciousness that allows us to be happy, healthy, prosperous, joyful, kind, aware, all of those things. So what is the purpose if it's not to convince a reluctant God, if it's not to change God's mind, if it's not to change other people? Oh, we like to do that. I'm in Science of Mind now. I can see that this person has this false belief and they're driving me crazy with it, so I'm going to do a spiritual mind treatment to fix them. No, because the issue that needs to be fixed isn't them. It's the person who's bothered by what they're seeing. That's the person who needs the work. Now, they may or may not change, but our experience of being bothered by it, that can change. If we're willing to shift, that's where the prayer work is. So Maxwell Maltz goes on to say, the important thing for you to remember is that it does not matter in the least how you got that idea or where it came from, but if you have accepted an idea, and further, if you are firmly convinced that the idea is true, it has the same power over you as the hypnotist's words have over the hypnotized subject. And you will believe that it's true. I saw a woman stroking a shoe and knowing it was a little dog. I saw a man eating an onion thinking it was a juicy peach, and the two of them laughing at each other. In this hypnotist's program of people on a cruise I was on, they were just people on the cruise. He had them convinced. She thought he was crazy for eating an onion. He thought she was nuts because she thought her shoe was a dog. But it seemed real to them. The belief was entirely invested in that. So I want to share a couple stories with you about things that have happened. Now, I'm not saying we can all do all these things, but there are some common threads here. Stu Middleman broke a world's record by running 1,000 miles in 11 days. He slept just 3 hours a night and covered 84 miles a day and ended in better condition than when he started. He wasn't lucky. He applied the principles of personal power, Tony Robbins says. See, he trained for years, but the one circumstance that changed it for him that was especially powerful, before undertaking this run, he spent time with a group of South American indigenous folks who, as part of a celebration, ran 75 miles a day for fun. That experience transformed his beliefs. He came to see that his goal of breaking the world's record was entirely possible. And then he went out and did it. He didn't do it as much as he had trained. He didn't do it until he saw people who were already doing it. And then he knew it could be done. Also, here's a couple others. Dean Karnazes was named by Men's Fitness as one of the fittest men on the planet. He was the real life version of the Flash, kind of, very fast. He was an endurance athlete. So he has submitted himself to some of the most physically and mentally grueling athletic tests we can imagine. Most notably, Karnazes has conquered a 350-mile run without stopping, even to sleep, in a sweltering sprint through the 120-degree heat of Death Valley, and a marathon to the South Pole, where temperatures drop to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. He did both those things. Though Karnazes had already built quite an extensive running resume, he continues to search for new ways to challenge his mind and body. And he completed also 50 marathons, one in each state, over 50 consecutive days. How is a human being capable of this? Here's another one. Using the Buddhist meditation technique Tummo, Dutch daredevil Wim Hof keeps his body temperature steady while enduring extremely cold conditions. Hof, whose feats have earned him the nickname Iceman, has completed several marathons and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in sub-freezing temperatures wearing only shorts. Hof holds 20 cold endurance records, world records, including at 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 48 seconds, the record for the longest ice bath. How do human beings do that? There was also a story about an African-American slave man who was able to allow hot lead shot to congeal in his mouth, running it over his teeth and his tongue and inside of his mouth until it completely cooled and congealed without burning himself. Anybody in here ever go on a firewalk? Anybody ever bend rebar just by walking forward? Anybody ever break a board with your hand? We've done all those things at retreats. It's a mental preparation and acceptance and commitment and willingness to do that. I never expected to break a board with my hand. I never took karate. I didn't know any of those things. I did it the very first time. I didn't even bruise. When we do something like that you should not, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, a fire walk, people with naked, no, I haven't done a fire walk. But for me, logically, hot coals, right? I know what they look like, hot coals. They're red, right? Walking across that in bare feet, to me, that's a hamburger. But people, I have seen the feet right afterwards, or very shortly afterwards, of people who've done that. Perfectly fine foot, no burns. However, people do get burned who walk when they're having doubt. And they do it because of the peer pressure. People do get burned when they do that. There is something about the mental preparation that allows us to do more than we thought we could do. And then when we pray from that place, we open up greater possibilities than we have known up until then. So I don't care what the conditions of your life are, how long you've been on the planet. We have tools that can be used in support of bringing forward something new, something amazing. I may not know exactly how it works, that creative law does this, or why there is such a thing within all of us, but I don't need to, any more than I need to know how my television works. I have no clue. All I know is I plug it in, I turn it on, it does what it's supposed to do. Sometimes I have to do some stuff with the remote, but basically, the thing works. I don't know why anything that I plug in suddenly has power. How do I get electricity in my house? I know I have wires, but how do they do that? I have no idea. Maybe an electrician could tell me, although I wouldn't understand the math, but that's okay. Here we have something that, do you know how your vacuum cleaner works? If you know how your vacuum cleaner works, raise your hand. So, yeah, okay. Some of you know how it works, exactly how it works. How many of you have ever used a vacuum cleaner? How many of you expected it to pick up dirt when you used it? Even those of you who didn't know how it does that still expected it to pick up dirt. We're used to the idea that it will work. Treatment is kind of like that. You have to use it in order to get a result. So Ernest Holmes would say, and I say too, don't believe this because I said so. Don't believe this because I gave examples or any of these other people said so. Put it to the test yourself. Learn to do it and then do it. Or start with affirmations if you don't know about treatment. Learn to do it and then practice it. Put it to the test. Really give it a fair test, because that's choosing the mystery and seeing what it has to give you. Namaste. Thank you. Now let's take a moment to just turn within ourselves in prayer, all right? So we always begin prayer, our form of prayer, with God, not with the problem, not with the situation, with God. So together we lift our awareness to this charged space of the consciousness of God all around us and within us and in everything in this room. There is no spot where God is not. The great, full, free, rich, abundant, joyous presence of that divine is right here within me. And what is true of me is true for all of us. This deep oneness is right here. And anything unlike it is simply here to be healed in love. So whatever does not look like that wholeness, that joy, that abundance, that peace, right here and now we look at that and we say to it clearly, no, you're not the highest truth. I know a higher truth, and I right now claim for myself and for all of us the truth within me of joy. the truth within me of freedom, of abundance, of love and harmony, of optimism, of power. And everything I have believed up until now that is less than that is merely a shadow. It has no power over me. It has no power over any of us. It is merely passing show. I put my attention on that which is ultimate truth, that changeless wholeness, that everlasting beingness, that is the truth within me beyond my form, the truth within every one of us beyond our form, our conditions, our circumstances, our history, more than our negative opinions about ourselves. This greater truth is more true of us than anything else. True here in this room, true everywhere. So we call that forth. We call forth the impossible good. We call forth the improbable good. We call forth healing of disputes. We call forth resolution of hurt feelings, of offenses, of losses. We call forth reconciliation in our hearts and our souls and our minds and our knowingness. And we allow calling this forth to set things right. Everywhere there is something that looks different from this wholeness, and particularly for us right here in this room, right now. We're grateful to breathe into this truth and allow its good to flood into our minds, our hearts, our souls, our lives. And to let it do that, we let go of everything else, and we let this prayer go into the law. We just let it be with gratitude and receptivity, with expectancy of good. And together we say, and so it is. Please stand and join me for the morning affirmation. As we say together, I am here to bring more blessings into the world. I surrender to the guidance of infinite mind. I don't always need to understand to embrace the mystery of eternally present love. And so it is. You may be seated. Thank you. And would the ushers please come forward? This is our time of sacred giving. If this is your first time with us, your presence here in the room is your gift. For all who are giving their gifts physically today, we're going to bless these together. And for those of you online who would like to make a donation to Golden Gate, just text the dollar amount you'd like to give to the number on the screen and then follow the directions. There are all manners of ways to give in your Sunday bulletin, but for right now, we're going to bless everything that Golden Gate has received this week, including all of us, and what's being given in the room. So let us put our hands over our hearts as we say this blessing together. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is. Yes. This is based on a Rumi poem.
Listen, listen, oh drop. Listen, listen, oh drop. Listen, 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 oh drop. Listen, 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 oh drop. In the arms of the sea, be secure. In the arms of the sea, be listen, oh, drop. Listen, listen, oh, drop. Listen, listen, oh, drop. Listen, listen, oh, drop. In the arms of the sea, be secure. In the arms of the sea, be secure. Have you ever seen an ocean wooing a drop, wooing a drop? Have you ever seen an ocean wooing a drop, wooing a drop? Have you ever seen an ocean wooing a drop, wooing a drop? Have you ever seen an ocean wooing a drop, wooing a drop? Listen, 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 oh, drop. 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 Have you ever seen an ocean wooing a drop, wooing a drop? Have you ever seen an ocean wooing a drop, wooing a drop? Have you ever seen an ocean wooing a drop, wooing a drop? Have you ever seen an ocean wooing a drop, wooing a drop? Listen, 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 oh, drop. 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 Listen, 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 oh, drop.
Each one of us is the drop being wooed back into the hole by the ocean. So, on behalf of Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, we, all of us here, accept this offering and we send it out into the world for a greater vision of the ultimate spiritual truth to be born in every one of us. And so it is. All right. If you are here with us for the very first time this morning, I want to draw your attention to the welcome table back here. There are all sorts of handouts available back there. Science of Mind magazines are back there, and there are also welcome packets. If you pick up a welcome packet, please do, and fill out the blue card inside and give it to Amanda back there. She's going to give you a little book that's our thank you gift for your being here this morning, and also an invitation for you to be with us and come back often. It's called Nourishing Thoughts. So turn your card in and you'll get that from Amanda back there. We're delighted that you're here. And I want to thank everyone that helped put this morning together before you ever got here to make sure the room was ready and everything looked beautiful. I especially want to thank Suzanne Karch for this gorgeous expression of spring. This is the vision of spring that we know inwardly exists even while it looks like winter all around us. So it's like an encapsulation of a prayer there, seeing the spiritual truth behind the appearance of the moment. So let's thank everybody, especially Suzanne, but let's thank everybody. And also, I want to let you know there's going to be a men's gathering, I think it's 2 weeks from Saturday, February 8th at Steve Einhouse's place. Steve's over here if you have questions for him this morning, but his phone number is also up here. It will be from 3 to 5 p.m. plus. So Steve said you're going to gather at his house for drumming circle and poetry sharing, and then see what that evolves into. So that's coming up on February 8th, just the guys now, sorry ladies. Talk to Steve if you have questions, and that will be a gathering that starts out at the fire pit, all right, on that date. Also, several people who wanted to join as members didn't get to last time because the sequence of classes didn't work for them. And so I'm going to start another membership class next week, next Sunday. This time it will be, the 3 Sundays will be every other week. So there'll be a little break in between. And then we'll have the new member reception on Friday, March 7th. I'll let you know where when I know where. And new member Sunday will be March 9th. So if you're interested in the new member class, the sign-up sheet is, oh, you put it back over there, okay. The sign-up sheet is over here on the activity table, and just sign up and that will let us know that you're interested in the membership class. And you can also email administrator@ggcsl, Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, at ggcsl.org, and Sonia will be able to follow up with you. We want to make sure that you get the Zoom link and all that stuff. So the class will begin next week. It'll be 1 to 3 p.m. on Zoom. Let us know right away if you're interested in taking that class, okay? Also, exciting news, the last Sunday in February, Gary Lynn Floyd is going to be here physically doing music for us that morning. And unfortunately, the community center has another activity, another event that's scheduled, and they're going to come in at 1 to start setting up. So we're going to take Gary, and we're going to go down the street to the Sunrise Center and have a potluck lunch and do a song circle with Gary, where we're all singing stuff, and he'll teach us and we'll sing together. So the lunch will be from 12 to 1, potluck, and I don't think there's a sign-up sheet back there yet for the potluck, but there will be next week. So you sign up for what you want to bring to the potluck to share with everybody. We'll have lunch there, do a little cleanup, and then we'll do a song circle for about an hour and a half with Gary. There is a suggested love offering for the song circle of $20. Gary's coming all the way from Reno for us. We definitely want to acknowledge his effort in being with us. And so this is going to be totally delightful. So I encourage you to put that on your calendar for the 23rd of February. Think about what you want to bring to the potluck and put that back, sign up back at the table next week. Sign-up sheet, however, for snacks is already back there. We're starting February next week. I don't know if we have anybody signed up for the first week of the month back there for snacks. We'll know when we get here next week if there aren't any. But you can sign up for any Sunday of the month back there for February through May. And also, those of you that would like to do something for the people in Southern California who have dealt with the fires, you will find on the Science of Mind website. So it's csl.org/2025-socal-fire-resources/ There's a whole list of stuff you can find there if you would like to be helpful and supportive of people going through that. And you can also talk to Suzanne Karch, who has connections through Rotary for those donations also. Suzanne is the beautiful woman in the red with a vest back there who's dancing. Talk to Suzanne if you'd like to do that. Yes, Joe, go ahead.
As you may know, I worked at Whole Foods this past year, and I understand Jack Ross collection. You are, I personally raised $1,200, $1, $5, $10 donations. $3
That's great. Thank you, Joe. So donations go directly to the Red Cross. If you go to Whole Foods to shop and you want to make a contribution, you can do it right there. Also, you will find there are little flyers about the song circle back on the table back here in case you want to take a half-sheet flyer with you about that. Practitioners, would you surround the room? Please remember prayer. The reason that we have practitioners who spend a lot of time training and then have to renew their licenses every 2 years until they have been practitioners for 20 years, they serve every Sunday as a gift to you. So if they're at the table, they're available for prayer following the service. Please take advantage of that gift. Don't let that pass you by without taking that opportunity. We're going to pray together. I'm going to speak out loud. They're going to pray in their minds and hearts with us. And just allow yourselves to receive this good right now. So we turn within, knowing once again that there is only one, and it's right here, surrounding us and flowing through us. This one is all-powerful. Whatever we need to know is known in the mind of God right where we are right now. And we are capable of knowing it, and God is capable of knowing exactly how to reveal it to us in such a way that we could not possibly miss it. So we open our willingness to God's guidance and revelation. We open our hearts to being guided to change, into willingness and commitment to do what is before us, to unfold in even higher and greater good. We bless it in advance, knowing in the mind of God it's already done and has always been the truth about us. So we let this go into the law. We anchor our knowing in gratitude, and together we say, and so it is. Please stand and join us for the closing blessing and the closing prayer. We say this together now. Are you ready? I now walk so that whoever walks beside me dwells in the presence of God, and whoever places a hand in mine is lifted, and whoever thinks of me is illumined with God consciousness. For Spirit and all people and I are one eternally. And so it is. And then we're back to Lisa Ferraro.
A song called Nothing Can Dim, and taking that light out into the world. Nothing can dim this light that shines from within. The lyric is from Dr. Maya Angelou, and we put music to it. And
This is it.
nothing can dim this light that shines from within. Nothing can dim this light that shines from within. Nothing can dim this light that shines from within. Light that shines from within. Nothing can dim.
That's the whole song. You know it now.
This light that shines from within. Nothing can dim. This light that shines from within. Nothing can dim. This light that shines from within. Light that shines from within. One more time. Nothing can dim. This light that shines from within. Nothing can dim this light that shines from within. Nothing can dim this light that shines from within. Light that shines from within. Light that shines from within. One more time. Light that shines from within.